I think it's time that we discuss Alabama in depth here in their history this year and what's transpiring so far this year and the disrespect that they have been given, which I think is a valid disrespect personally after the first, 3 weeks of the year. Just piss poor performances. They got beat by Texas by double digits at home and then a 17-3 win at USF. We all know this. But since then, since that USF game, they have 2-score wins, so 14-point wins over the current number 9 team in the college football playoff, the number 13 team in the college football playoff, and the number 19 team in the college football playoff. Those are current rankings, not when they played them. Those are current. So they have 3 double or 2 touchdown wins. Granted, all of them were at home. Take that for what it's worth. It's still 14 points, no matter how you look at it. You say you spot 3 points for being at home. All right, it's 11-point win against these 3 teams, right? 2 of which are in the top 15, 1 of which is in the top 10. That's better than any other team ranked ahead of them. All they have, obviously, is a loss at Texas, and I give you that. It's a loss. You cannot just look over a loss. You have to penalize a loss. I understand that. However, I think Alabama should be above Oregon. Just because of their wins. Oregon's at 6.
Oregon's at 6. So you're saying they need to be above 6?
Yeah, I honestly think that Alabama should probably be. I would put them above Texas, and I know that's a hot take because they got beat by Texas. However, since that game, I think Alabama has done more to show that they're a better team than Texas has since then. I know that Texas is on their backup quarterback, and they had a great win, overtime win against Kansas State last week. But I genuinely think that Alabama should be the first one-loss team in the playoff rankings simply because of their body of work, strength of schedule, and strength of record. You got to keep that stat in mind as well. Strength of record, for those of you that don't know, is they rank your record against what every other team in the country could do with that same schedule, right? And their strength of record is really high. I think it's like 6 or 7. And their strength of schedule is, I believe, 6th or 7th, maybe 8th at this point. And every team in front of them is honestly pretty bad at both of those. So I just wanted to get on here and really just say how amazing it is to see the turnaround that Alabama has had under Jalen Milroe, and that chip on the shoulder, back against the wall type of performances that we've seen in their 3 biggest games since the Texas loss and the USF game have all been 2 touchdown wins over current playoff ranked teams. What do you guys think? Do you think they deserve to be, a little bit higher, the first one-loss team sitting there at 6 instead of at 8 and not moving after a 14-point win to against LSU?
I'll take it first. For me, it's tough to have them any higher than 8. I think 8's exactly where they should be. And, we can talk about eye test and how much better you look than this team at this point. I will always and forever be a results on the field matters guy. So for me, it is an absolute zero discussion as long as the field is equivalent. If both teams are one loss and they're both conference champions, Texas should be ahead of Alabama, no questions asked. That's just where I sit on that matter. I will forever choose results on the field over eye test, right? In terms of Oregon and Alabama, because that's the other one-loss team ranked ahead of them, I just think Oregon's got a better loss at Washington by a field goal, I believe. And the thing that concerns me, if you're an Alabama fan, in terms of do we get in over Oregon or not, if Oregon is to win out, they will more than likely beat the team that beat. So it kind of does this thing where it eradicates your loss without fully getting rid of your loss. The field in front of Alabama right now, this is crazy to think about. I don't know if they control their own destiny, even as a one-loss SEC champ. And I know that sounds nuts, but hear me out. Think of a world, and this is not a crazy world to live in. Washington holds on and wins out. All right, now you've got an undefeated conference champ. Ohio State or Michigan, either one, wins out. That's 2 undefeated conference champions. Florida State takes care of business and beats Miami and Louisville. I believe the other team on their schedule is Florida. We'll talk about that later. That's not a challenge. So Florida State pretty much has the Miami game and what I would assume is Louisville in the ACC title game as potential slip-ups. And outside of that, I don't see them losing. So that's 3 undefeated teams. You're going to be behind all of those teams, period. I guess there is precedent for a one-loss team getting ranked above undefeateds, but it's really rare. You got to go like way back to 2014, the first year of the playoff, to find that. And then the final one would be Texas. How crazy is it to think that Texas wins out? I think Iowa State's their toughest regular season game left, and then they'd have Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title. So do you think that if Washington's undefeated in a conference champion, Florida State's undefeated, the Big 10 team is undefeated, and Texas is 1 loss, how do you put Alabama? Like, how do you do it?
I think if is this a rhetorical question? I mean, if it's rhetorical, I'll shut up. It doesn't matter.
No, I mean, I'm serious.
Well,
If you have,
I mean, for me, it's an easy answer. Yes, you look at the head-to-head, and that takes to account a lot. But also, you have to look at what else you've done the rest of the year, right? So let's say Alabama wins the SEC championship game, and let's just say they beat Georgia by 10 points. That's Georgia's only loss. At that point, they would have 4 wins over top 25 teams, 3 of which are probably going to be top 15 by double digits or more. Texas, they have a win at Alabama. They have a win against Kansas, who at the time was ranked 24th. They'll probably still potentially be ranked in the top 25. A loss to Oklahoma. And then their only other ranked win would be Kansas State at 23, which is a pretty decent win. And then they would probably play Oklahoma State, if I had to guess, in the Big 12 championship game, and they're currently ranked 15th. So I don't know. I mean, I think if you take in complete body of work, even though the head-to-head says otherwise, I think you would take Alabama based upon strength of record, strength of schedule. But I don't know. It's tough. I mean, that's a tough question.
I mean, what do you think, Chase? What do you think in this scenario? Do you take this? You're right. Strength of record, strength of schedule. Alabama pretty much is better than everybody in that regard, as far as like who we're arguing semantics between. But do you set the precedent of just completely and totally throwing out a head-to-head matchup? Like, do you look Texas in the eye and go, yeah, you beat them, but we don't think you're better than them, so we're going to leave you at home?
Well, one thing I'll have to say is, so you got to take some of the analytics with you. Then you got to take some of the analytics out. So when I'm looking at Texas right now, since the Oklahoma loss, they've beaten Houston at Houston, which is a home game, basically. It's 2 hours away, by 7. Beat BYU at home, of course, 35-6. Then beat Kansas State 33-30 on a great defensive drive. Now you got that, right? Then let's also factor in Quinn Ewers is hurt, and we don't know when he does come back. So let's say they went out. And we also got to factor in some money. Let's factor in some politics, guys. You know, do you want to watch a backup quarterback at Texas, or do you want to watch Alabama maybe make a Cinderella run? That's something we got to think of too. But personally, looking at Texas's schedule post Oklahoma, it has been very top 15-ish. It has not been top 4, top 5. They have the mantle of, hey, I'm a top 7 team, but they have not played like it. And if they continue to play this way, because they got at TCU, which is probably going to be a little bit of a tough game, then at Iowa State. So 2 of the last 3 games are on the road. Personally, right now, if the college football playoffs, like if I was doing the rankings tonight, I think Alabama should be at 7. Just the way Texas has played the last few weeks. Now, your question, Quinn, of all of that, that's actually something I can't wrap my head around. And it is really hard.
It's not even that far out of the realm of possibility to think
not.
that could happen.
Yeah, and that's the problem is you got a lot of great for Alabama. This is a 2011 year. This is you have to have somebody lose at least one, because 2011 you got to remember I think they were number 4, and they had to have Kansas State lose and TCU or maybe somebody else, TCU and somebody else. They had to have a couple lose so they can move up to that spot. I think you're going to have that happen again this year. You're going to have 1 or 2 losses, whether that's Texas again or whoever. Somebody's going to have to lose for you to maneuver up.
So you mentioned the 2011 year. What they needed Stanford to lose that game to Oregon that they lost. But the big one was they needed Oklahoma State to lose. And Oklahoma State went on the road to Iowa State 2 weeks before the season was over and lost. Which is, if I'm not mistaken, exactly where Texas plays Iowa State as well, on the road 2 weeks.
Yeah, Texas plays Iowa State second to last game of the year at Iowa State. Mm-hmm. And you know, I tell you, man, I think if they were playing at Kansas State, they lose that game last weekend. So these last 2 games at TCU and at Iowa State without Quinn Ewers is going to be something to watch. Because Chase, you said it, they have not played their best at all. Since the Oklahoma game or even since Quinn Ewers got hurt. I mean, let's just keep that honest.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be interesting, but I still think that you take Bama personally, because you have to also factor in how the team's playing right then and there, because teams do get better through the year goes on. And Texas beat Alabama in week 3 with week 2 rather, with a first-year starting quarterback in their first big game. So I think they'll take a lot of that into account as well, and I think also how Alabama finishes the year and how Texas finishes the year as well. So I don't know. Go ahead.
One more thing, and you got to also look at Alabama's schedule. I'm kind of running the time a little bit here, but look at Alabama's. Like Freddie alluded to how they've won, but also if you've watched Alabama games since that South Florida, the second half adjustments from both coordinators, Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees, has proved wonders. I mean, I believe in those same games that you mentioned, Freddie, against Tennessee, against LSU, and Ole Miss, I think there's only 6 points, 9 points between all 3 teams.
There was a touchdown. Yeah, there was a touchdown by LSU, and then there was 3 points by Ole Miss and 0 by Tennessee.
So 10 points to 3 top 20 candidates, and their defense has been lights out. And granted, Jaden Daniels didn't play, I think, the whole 4th quarter this past game against Alabama. But still, to come out and do that and just shut down these teams who are high-profile offenses and then also put up points on you in the first half and to make those – that looks amazing to me personally when I'm looking at, okay, this team's going to put up a fight compared to who may or who may not. So
it's very interesting. We'll put it that way. I'm excited. I'm excited for the chaos. We always want chaos at the end of the year, but this is the year that actually shaping up to where it looks like there could be chaos. There's 11 teams with 1 loss or less right now.
This is one of those years that I put my foot in my mouth, because I used to always say the 12-team playoff's dumb, and there's going to be very few years where we actually need it. This is one of the few years where I can make a case that you actually need it, because there's just a lot of really good teams.
Right.
NIL money creates parity.